The anime begins with Shagaru, who, due to his ugly face, suffered bullying from everyone, but he grew accustomed to it. Then, we see him confronting his boss at work, who wanted him to cheat customers for greater profits. However, Shagaru refused and insulted his boss, which enraged him. The most important thing for Shagaru was his customers. Despite his ugly face, people loved and respected him because of his good treatment and kind personality. Unfortunately, he wasn't popular among women due to his appearance, but he was content with his life. One day, while riding the train, a woman falsely accused him of harassment. He tried to deny it, but no one listened, and he was thrown off the train, losing his bags in the process. Here, he suffered again because of his ugly face. Due to the incident, he was put on trial. Shagaru decided to confess to the crime to avoid severe punishment, thinking it was the best option. He was fined 300 yen and assumed the matter was over. However, this marked the beginning of his curse. Shortly after, he received a dismissal letter from work, leaving him miserable and bankrupt. Later, he learned that the woman who accused him had been arrested for doing the same to many others, but she was released without punishment because she was a minor. This infuriated Shagaru, but he could do nothing about it. Shagaru headed to a job interview and saw children bullying a small child in a wheelchair. He could only mutter, "How ugly this world is." At the interview, he found himself struggling to communicate and becoming nervous around others due to the false accusation. He became an outcast because of the crime and his ugliness. 6 years passed, and he remained at home, miserable and broke, unable to do anything. He had exhausted all his resources until the day he browsed the internet and found discussions about myths of transferring to another world. Some people wondered how to deal with this world. Shagaru dismissed it as impossible and unreal. Then, he followed the method to transfer to another world, opening his window, pointing his device north, standing in the window with his hands raised at exactly 2:00 a.m. When he did this, a message appeared on his device confirming his transfer to another world. He began exploring and found that he would be reborn in the other world at age 16, where he could set his attributes. When he reached the appearance window, the default was 5, but he set it to 255. In exchange, he received 13.0 experience points for making his appearance ugly. He concluded that the more he sacrificed and worsened his attributes, the more experience points he would gain. He even made it so he couldn't touch women or form relationships with them, deducting many points if he did. By adding numerous disadvantages, he gained an additional 100 trillion experience points, an astronomical number no one had ever achieved. A countdown window appeared, and Shagaru vanished from his world. He woke up on a bed in another world, thinking it was a dream. When he looked in the mirror, he was shocked by his ugliness, but remembered it was his choice. Then, 3 others appeared, a man and 2 women. Shagaru was embarrassed to see them. They introduced themselves, all in the same situation. 16 years old and transferred from their worlds. They found a place with clothes, weapons, and some money, but were puzzled to find only 7 gold coins, which couldn't be divided among 4. Shagaru recalled he had reduced his savings, which was the reason. He tried to please them, saying he didn't want the money. Sika, one of the girls, accepted this, but Seiji didn't. He said it was unfair and advised Shagaru not to please others at his own expense in this life, or he would fail again. Shagaru was stunned by Seiji's words, but Seiji apologized, explaining he might have been talking about himself unintentionally, as he had struggled with selfishness and communication issues in his past life. Shagaru thought Seiji was lying, wondering how someone like him could have communication problems. Seiji hoped to avoid his past life's issues in this one, and advised everyone to use this chance to do the same. They agreed to divide the loot using rock, paper, scissors. Unfortunately, Shagaru lost and ended up with a wooden stick. Seiji tried to lighten the mood by having everyone shake hands, but Shagaru refused because he couldn't touch women without severe penalties. Of course, no one knew this. The others got along well, ignoring Shagaru, who could only think about how he had sacrificed his appearance this time for extraordinary stats. While Seiji was searching the map for a nearby location, he came across a village called Arya and informed his team they would head there. Shagaru, on the other hand, was planning to part ways with them during the journey. As they were about to open the door, they encountered a small monster. Seiji swiftly charged at it, delivering a decisive blow that ended its life. However, they soon discovered that a large number of monsters were waiting for them outside. Seiji believed they could handle the situation thanks to their arsenal of weapons. He instructed Sika to prepare her bow and asked Shagaru to support her. He ordered Rizo to head north, while Seiji took the right flank. They began their attack, and Seiji and Rizo managed to eliminate some of the monsters, but Sika struggled to ready her bow, feeling frustrated for choosing this particular weapon. Shagaru noticed she lacked the necessary experience to use it. Sika asked him why he wasn't joining the fight, to which he replied that it was easier said than done. However, as he spoke, he was suddenly struck from behind by one of the monsters. Seiji urged him to take charge, but Shagaru failed to defeat the monster, his attacks proving too weak. The monster seized the opportunity and attacked, forcing him to flee in fear. Sika saw Shagaru as utterly feeble. Shagaru was hit again and knocked to the ground, feeling as though his fate in this second life was no different from his first. He remembered that his weakness stemmed from not allocating his bonus points before the deadline. But just as the monster prepared to deliver the final blow, Shagaru managed to block it and counter with a strike that killed the monster. Immediately, a message appeared, notifying him that his level had risen after slaying the monster. Shagaru's level increased by 31, and Seiji and Rizo's levels also rose. Rizo asked how to distribute her points, and Seiji advised her to focus on strength and endurance. However, Shagaru didn't receive the same pop-up windows as the others' only private messages. He allocated his points unconventionally, assigning 1,000,000,000 points to every skill. As a result, Shagaru transformed into a great lord with immense power. Another monster attacked him, but he remained unaffected. Deciding to test his strength, he struck one of the monsters. The blow was so powerful that the monster vanished into the sky, leaving behind the legend of the Great Lord's birth. Meanwhile, Sika was still unsuccessfully trying to ready her bow. Seiji and Rizo continued slaying monsters, but Shagaru couldn't bear seeing Sika helpless. He pretended to suffer from bowstring syndrome, claiming the bow was speaking to his mind and demanding he string it. He begged her to let him do it, and she handed him the bow immediately. Shagaru recalled the videos he'd watched during his seclusion, along with his 1,000,000,000-point manual dexterity skill. He effortlessly strung the bow, astonishing Sika, who asked if he was a member of an archery club. Shagaru vaguely confirmed it. Sika insisted he fire the first arrow, and despite his hesitation, he eventually agreed. Shagaru selected the required skill and fired the arrow, but it didn't head toward the monsters. Instead, it soared into the sky, opening a massive magical circle from which a giant dragon emerged and attacked the monsters. The entire team was stunned, and all the monsters were wiped out. Sika asked what had happened, but Shagaru simply replied that he'd been in an archery club. Sika declared she would take charge from then on. But soon, another group of monsters advanced toward them. Seiji asked Sika to prepare and cover their rear, so she stepped forward and unleashed a volley of arrows but missed every target. Seiji and Rizo decided to attack the monsters directly. Sika felt frustrated and useless. Shagaru noticed she'd exhausted her arrows quickly and felt shocked and saddened for her. He used an arrow regeneration skill, turning wood into a large supply of arrows and placing them beside her. Then he told her she had more ammunition, but Sika didn't learn from her mistakes, firing another futile volley. Shagaru realized it was hopeless. Seiji continued eliminating monsters, and Rizo informed him they'd completed the mission. Seiji suggested they could now head to Arya City, and Shagaru assumed he'd stay with them until they arrived. When they reached Arya City, Rizo pointed out a hamburger restaurant, expressing her craving for French fries. They all headed to the restaurant except Shagaru, who decided this was the right moment to say goodbye. He sat alone on the edge of a fountain, feeling extremely hungry. A cat approached him, and he almost touched it but then remembered it might be a girl, costing him 10 points if he did. Suddenly, Sika appeared before him, causing him to fall into the fountain. After stepping out, Sika showed him a hamburger and offered it as a reward for helping her string the bow. Shagaru felt that Sika was kinder than he had imagined. Meanwhile, Sika thought that since he was broke, he had nothing to lose by accepting the offer. Shagaru was extremely hungry and reached for the hamburger, but accidentally touched Sika's hand. This resulted in a powerful electric shock that caused him to lose an enormous number of points and intense pain. He lost 58 trillion points, enough to kill every person on Earth. Sika felt sad because she had bought the food for him, but she realized he hadn't meant to do it. Shagaru reflected that his earnestness in helping had made him the best salesman ever. He apologized and told her that her beauty was the reason his hands trembled, and that he would gratefully accept the food even if it was dirty. As he reached for the hamburger again, Sika stopped him. She told him she would bring him another meal as a replacement, and apologized for being too beautiful. Shagaru thought this might be her own food, but she didn't mind she was rich. She added that she hadn't just helped him string the bow but had also found the arrows and returned them to him. Shagaru was surprised she had noticed, having assumed she was a spoiled girl who wouldn't pay attention. He took the food and began eating. At that moment, Seiji and Rizo appeared, calling out to him, which annoyed him, but he decided to stay with them until he could repay Sika, then part ways. Sika and Shiguro went to the weapons shop where Sika bought a lot of arrows for her bow. Shiguro was shocked by the number of arrows because he could produce the same amount or even more through his ability. Then Sika asked Shiguro if he wanted her to buy him anything from this shop. Was it because he was broke? Then Seiji and Rizo came over and told them they found a new inn and would be spending the night there, but Shiguro planned to spend the night in the park. Sika offered to pay for his room, but Shiguro refused because he felt it wasn't right, which embarrassed Sika. She asked him if he refused because she was the one paying, but Shiguro told her that wasn't the reason. Then Sika grabbed to move towards the inn, and Shiguro realized that touching the clothes didn't cause any harm, but he felt confused. He went with her, and then we moved to the inn where Seiji had a problem due to a lack of money. Then we shift to Shiguro's room, where he was thinking that he couldn't take on more debt, but he was broke since his income had dropped to 10,000. He would be stuck in this situation unless he found a steady income, because if he was stuck, he could get into big trouble that might force him to flee from this world he had run to. Then they gathered together, and Shiguro provided them with a lot of food, which surprised them. He did this because he couldn't eat it all by himself. Seiji asked Shiguro where he got the food from, but Shiguro told them it was a gift from a kind person, saying he mimicked a company employee on the last train of the day. Sika then asked about the company employee, but Shiguro realized she didn't know what it meant, which was good. However, Sika told Shiguro that begging was inappropriate even if he was poor, and suggested that if he needed money, he should just ask her since she was wealthy. Then they thanked him for the food, but in truth, Shiguro had bought it. It became simple after he figured out the rules and realized it was called swapping. He had made the arrows through his ability, then took them to the weapons shop, asked for 40% of the selling price, and got items in return. He thought his method of persuasion was aggressive, but he had now paid off all his debt to Sika. After that, Seiji showed them the map to discuss their next mission, but Sika wanted to explore the country more. However, Seiji thought they should first establish a source of income and that the monsters left no money behind. He pointed them to a cave near the city, saying he would check it out today. Sika thought that was great, but Rizo disagreed, finding it dangerous. Then a stranger appeared and asked if they were going to the Arya cave, and if they needed a guide, mentioning he was newly manifested like them. Shiguro looked at him, but the stranger said he hadn't seen Shiguro's face before, and asked if they had just arrived. Seiji confirmed they had just arrived, and Shiguro noticed Seiji's caution. Then the stranger showed them some cards, and asked if they knew what they were, which made Sika excited to learn about these cards. Shiguro saw how innocent Sika was. The stranger put the cards on the table and told them these were items they would find in the first cabin, granting them a one-time discount at the inn. Sika felt disappointed because she wanted that item, but the stranger told her she could get it now, and asked her to go retrieve her money from the reception. Sika almost did this, but Seiji asked her to stop, believing this offer was too good to miss. Then Seiji asked the stranger about himself. The stranger introduced himself as Kyoshir, and his job was to guide newcomers like them. He offered his services, saying they would get a better deal. Shiguro felt Kyoshir was suspicious and probably lurking around newcomers, but if something happened, he had the power of a great monster. Then Seiji thought about it and saw they weren't rich, but if this was an investment to enhance their knowledge and experiences, it was fine. He offered Kyoshir 120 rira plus a bonus, asking if he accepted this offer. Kyoshir agreed to Seiji's proposal, and they got ready to head to the Arya cave. However, a group of monsters appeared heading towards them, and Sika shot arrows at them, but as usual, she couldn't hit them. Then she asked Kyoshir to save some arrows, but Sika didn't worry about the arrows because she had plenty. However, Kyoshir meant she needed to improve her aim, and asked her to imagine every arrow costing 100 million yen, which made Sika think even the wealthy would be careful. Then Sika aimed again and succeeded in hitting one of the monsters, surprising everyone. Kyoshir told her she wasn't bad, which made Sika feel jealous afterward, thinking she had now outperformed Shiguro with her shooting skills. Then Seiji asked them to move forward, but Shiguro didn't expect Kyoshir to guide them so efficiently. But that's normal for a former merchant, alongside the skepticism about job offers, and he was the one who suggested these helmets, made by someone who also just manifested. Sika didn't have the patience and wasted 60 rira. Then they began training in combat. Kyoshir started giving Seiji several tips, and also provided Rizo with advice. Sika was on the other side training her archery. Kyoshir asked Shiguro if he wanted to join them, but Shiguro didn't have a suitable skill. Kyoshir felt it was hard to raise his stick level, but Shiguro was already at level 61. However, Kyoshir told him not to lose hope, and mentioned he heard stick skills were exceptional. Shiguro agreed, because he remembered when he went out at night to craft arrows, he encountered a huge monster, tried the stronger stick ability, and was surprised by its power. Everything would disappear within a 200-kilometer radius, and if he used it from Saitama, it would connect the Pacific Ocean to the Sea of Japan, and he immediately canceled canceled it. Then he returned to the present, and Kiyoshiro reminded him to keep fighting continuously, or he would have to retire like him, sharing that he was once a member of a mercenary group and its leader. However, he had fallen behind due to a lack of skill, while that person rose through the ranks and became a king, reaching level 80 with a stat average of 160. But to Shiguro, this was very weak. Then Kiyoshiro told Shiguro not to lose hope and keep trying. Then they headed to the Arya cave and entered, but Sika was paralyzed with fear when they moved inside. Sika was shocked by the limestone, but Kiyoshiro warned her not to move too much to avoid knocking over the rock, which annoyed her. She then asked Shiguro about her age due to her behavior. Then Seiji asked Sika about her real-life age. He thought that information was crucial for strategic planning, making Shiguro happy from this question, while Sika hesitated to tell her age. Seiji clarified he had 30 years of real-life experience, which shocked Shiguro. Then Sika finally told them her age wasn't 16 but 17. They continued walking, and Seiji asked Sika if she was ready for college entrance exams. She confirmed she was achieving top marks. While they were exploring the cave, they encountered a group of bats before reaching the depths of the cave. Sika pushed forward to break through the door, but Kiyoshiro asked Sika about her level. When he learned she was level 3, he realized that wasn't enough because this was a boss room, and she would die instantly, which scared Sika and made her fall back. Then Seiji thanked Kiyoshiro for helping them reach this place. Kiyoshiro shook Seiji's hand, saying he would become a good leader. However, before leaving, he told them about a special event before he went and asked them to follow him. Then they moved to the meeting room, and this room reminded him of bad memories. Sieg asked if he was the one who built this room, but it wasn't Kiyoshiro. It was someone else who told them this place is safe, that monsters can't enter and magic can't penetrate. Now Shiguro thought he would discover Kiyoshiro, and that there is no safe place within a 200-kilometer radius of the town of Arya, so this place isn't safe either. Then Kiyoshiro offered them some sweets, and Sika thought it was a party. Kiyoshiro confirmed it was a party for them since they had just manifested anew and reached this place. Shiguro discovered a sleeping potion at the edge of the drinks, which didn't seem to affect him, but Sieg understood this about Kiyoshiro. However, he needed to return before sunset. Sika wanted to celebrate, and Kiyoshiro thought he was overstating things and that he hadn't forced them to do this. He asked them to return to the town, where they would celebrate appropriately. Then Sieg apologized to Kiyoshiro for doubting him, and for treating them well. However, Kiyoshiro didn't care about this and told him he did what a leader should do. He offered him a drink, and Sieg took it, which surprised Shiguro with his behavior. They drank the beverages offered to them, but Shiguro tried to distract them and delay them by talking about what they were doing before coming to this world. This led to everyone being surprised by the question, but Shiguro immediately apologized since they were fleeing to this world. Sieg then asked them if they wanted to hear his past story. He told them that when he was in school, he got tired of everything and left home, establishing a company called Life of Success. Shiguro recalled that he visited this place and saw a resemblance between the manager and Sieg, but Sieg continued, stating that at the start of the company, a salesman came unannounced, named Y, trying to sell him an expensive copier. Shiguro realized he was talking about himself. Then Sieg went on to say he tried negotiating the price, but Mr. Y told him he would put a smile on his face and would never let him down, telling him that he was the boss and needed to learn to relax. This made Sieg affected by Mr. Y's passion, and he left management to his employees so he could go out and relax. After a while, the company grew and became publicly traded, but then he left his company, which went bankrupt, surprising them. The reason was a project involving artificial intelligence they developed, which caused a crisis for everyone who had an income and became mentally ill. He couldn't repay the debt to Mr. Y, who was the one who gave it to him. So when he came to this world, he swore he would never let anyone down. Then he told them that Mr. Y's name was Shiguro, and asked Shiguro to tell him his family name, but Shiguro said he was Sasaki and pronounced a name different from his real one. Then Shiguro lost consciousness and awareness. Kiyoshiro was waiting for this with his other friends and told them they were very naive and easy targets, but Shiguro was awake and hadn't slept like them. They approached Shiguro and his friends and restrained them, but Shiguro remembered something he preferred to forget. However, Sieg woke up and warned Kiyoshiro and his friends not to touch any of his friends, but Kiyoshiro thought all Sieg could do was just stand and try to hinder their path. But he was grabbed by one of Kiyoshiro's friends, and Kiyoshiro told Sieg that he was wrong for trusting him and that he had surpassed him. But Sieg punched the man grabbing him until he was thrown away, and the thief almost attacked him, but Kiyoshiro told him not to hurt him because it would lower the price. Here, Sieg discovered they were kidnapping people this way. Then he got up and told them that those who came to this world were broken from their previous world, being dropped while they were about to get a second chance. But Kiyoshiro thought this was the world where all failures came. However, Sieg promised him that if anyone touched his friends, he would protect them. But Kiyoshiro mocked him because he wasn't in the best shape and asked the other thieves to restrain him immediately. When they were about to attack him, Shiguro jumped high, landing on them, pushing them away from Sieg. Sieg told Shiguro that it was reckless of him, but Shiguro asked him to leave it to him. But Sieg wouldn't agree to let him fight alone. Then Sieg told the gang he was very strong and would take them out with one blow, surprising Shiguro. Then Kiyoshiro asked his followers to restrain them, and when they began to attack, Shiguro jumped on them again, but he took a hit from one of the thieves. However, he took advantage of that and fell on the rest of the thieves, and Shiguro was reassured since there weren't any girls among them. Then Kiyoshiro asked one of his followers to kill Shiguro, and Sieg told Shiguro to escape immediately. Then they attacked Shiguro, and Kiyoshiro thought they would kill him and tortured him, but Sieg asked them to stop, and his hands were glowing. He told them that this light would pierce through all evils, and if they were thinking of backing down, this was the right time. Kiyoshiro was surprised by this power, but Sieg wrote in the special note that he made a vow to never let any of his friends down, and if he did, he would pay the price. He obtained this power through the points he had gathered. Shiguro was surprised that he hadn't balanced his power and put everything into this power, but Sieg devoted this skill because when his anger peaked, it glowed red. He asked them to drop their weapons and leave, but the thieves laughed at him, saying they weren't afraid of his glowing right hand. But they left no choice to Sieg and insisted on fighting. Then Kiyoshiro struck at Sieg, but Shiguro blocked it and told Sieg to use him as a shield because the thieves outnumbered them and took the hit instead. But Sieg was shocked at Shiguro, wondering why he was doing this. However, Shiguro thought that in real life, his kindness was taken advantage of, but in another world, a person should be rewarded for their goodness. He hadn't escaped yet and asked Sieg to show them how to get the job done. Then Sieg used his power and transformed into the unbeatable hero Atonement. The strength within Seiji appeared, and also his third eye, and the power radiating from his hands, which led to Shigeru's surprise and Kyoshiro's astonishment at the appearance of Seiji's hidden power. Then Seiji made his power known, which led to the thieves feeling fear, and he was about to punch Kyoshiro but stopped because it wasn't him who would judge him, but the law, and it would be easy to punish him, but this would strip you of your chance to atone for what you've done, and you will be judged by the law, and he must regret until he is reborn. And Shigeru thought Seiji was very kind, which led to Kyoshiro's surrender. Then Seiji backed down from harming Kyoshiro, but he promised him that if he did anything else, he would punish him and wouldn't spare him. But Shigeru thought Seiji shouldn't turn his back on them because this led Kyoshiro to exploit the situation, pick up the sword, and attack Seiji from behind. But Shigeru intervened before Kyoshiro reached Seiji and tripped him, which led to Kyoshiro's anger at Shigeru. And all the thieves started hitting Shigeru, but Shigeru pointed Adeline's friends to them until they stopped hitting him. Then he showed snot from his nose and released it on them, which led to a big explosion. And Kyoshiro asked what happened, but Shigeru admitted that this was Adeline's doing, and he was very impressed by Seiji's power, which led to Seiji's surprise that he did this and didn't believe it. But Shigeru insisted on continuing the matter and told him he saw it with his own eyes. And he told him about a white falcon descending as if it responded to the hero's anger and saved him from the thieves. And the thieves were listening to Shigeru, very attentive. Then Seiji asked again, did this really happen? Which led to the thieves begging Seiji to forgive them. And Shigeru thought the thieves now knew they couldn't win. And Kyoshiro cried a lot and told Seiji that he wouldn't commit crimes after that and that they would change themselves. And Shigeru was surprised by this sudden change. Then Shigeru asked the thieves to line up all together, and after they did this, Shigeru asked Adeline to slap them with his hands because they don't understand others' pain, and Adeline must teach them this, which led to Adeline's enthusiasm, and Shigeru expected the elimination of the villains, and Seiji told them that the light of his hand should penetrate everything. But he returned to his normal state, which led to Shigeru's astonishment, and he asked him, why did you return to your normal state? But Seiji had nothing to anger him, and he believed that nothing but love should feed anger, and he cried a lot because if he did that, it would be self-gratification to engrave the pain of his hands and the person he hit in his heart, and he saw that this was love. Then he asked them to stand straight, and when they did, they, the thieves, delivered a slap to each one of them, the thieves, which led to each one of them apologizing to him. And Shigeru asked himself, what is this that I'm seeing? Then Seiji carried Sika outside, and Shigeru put all the burden on Seiji because if he touched any girl, he would meet his demise. Then they tied up the thieves, and the thieves were surprised by Seiji falling to the ground, and Kyoshiro thought this was the effect of the drug, and he thought he had a chance against him now. And Shigeru saw that they hadn't changed. Then Kyoshiro offered Shigeru to join them because it was hard for him to stay in a team with attractive people, and he asked him to join him and provide him with women, and they would pay him generously too. But Shagaru stood up straight and untied himself easily, which led to the thieves' astonishment, and Shagaru told them that Seiji was stronger than him, which led to their extreme fear. Then Shagaru went forward to check on Seiji, and Kyoshiro said that this person had a heart full of justice. Then he provided comfort to Seiji, and told him that he did well, which led to Kyoshiro and the thieves feeling angry about this. And Kyoshiro reprimanded Shagaru, and he also didn't escape the reprimand of the rest of the thieves. Then we moved to the team's house, and they received their reward after handing over the thieves to justice, and they were surprised by the amount of the reward, which was 100,000 rira, equivalent to about 10 million yen, and that the amount was exorbitant because they committed many heinous acts. Then Seiji asked them that each one of them get their share, but Sika told him that they were sleeping and didn't do anything. But Seiji felt let down because he was the one who exposed them to danger because he trusted Kyoshiro so naively. Then Sika asked, who defeated these villains? And she also asked Shagaru if he was sleeping at the time, but Seiji admitted that Shagaru was braver than him and that he used his body as a shield to protect him, which led to Sika's admiration for this. And Seiji asked Shagaru to accept the money, but Shagaru refused because his income rate was 10,001, and that he would leave the team after paying Sika's debt, and that he would use his previous skill as a salesman, which was good speaking. And Shagaru told Seiji that he, Shagaru, was wasteful, and that his money disappeared in the blink of an eye, so he wanted someone he trusted to spend it wisely, which led to Seiji's agreement, and that he would distribute the money to everyone to strengthen the team. Then he distributed the money to them, and asked them to use it for equipping and preparing, and he gave Shagaru his share, but Shagaru refused, and said he preferred to be broke. But Sika asked to take Shigeru's money on his behalf to manage it for him, and she asked him to tell her if he needed anything. But Seiji saw that Sika tended to buy things without thinking, which greatly embarrassed Sika. But Seiji didn't mean this, but Shagaru thought that giving the money to Sika might be a good idea. Then they moved to the restaurant, and Sika asked Shagaru to wait for her, and that she would pay. Then Shagaru said that in the end, Sika took his share, and he thought that 25,000 rira would be enough to pay for one night's lodging and food too, and now he had no reason to stay, and he thought this was their last dinner. Then Sika brought food to Shagaru and asked him to show her his gratitude. Then Shagaru thanked her, but she asked him not to thank her, and she rejoiced when he told her, "Thank you very much." And Shagaru said to himself that Sika was enjoying this conversation, and that she used to be unfriendly but was the opposite in reality. Then Sika asked Shagaru to forget about his diet and eat the food. Then Shagaru started eating and asked Sika if she liked burgers. Of course, Sika liked it, and she fell in love with it 2 days ago, and Shagaru thought that she hadn't eaten it before, so there was no doubt she was truly a spoiled girl. Then Sika also started eating the burger. Then Sika asked about Shigeru's stats, and after she learned they were boring, he told her it was a shame he hadn't noticed this. Shiguri asked her, what matter? But Sika had a little trick. When your appearance value in the stats drops, the number of bonus points goes up. This surprised Shigure that she knew that. But Shigure didn't think Sika would actually do that, yet Sika had lowered it to 16, which shocked Shigure. He wondered, how is that even possible? Even if her appearance value was high to begin with. Sika then asked Shigure, am I pretty? When he confirmed it, she told him she had recorded it in the stats, and wrote that she wanted to be beautiful. Shigure was surprised for the second time, because he hadn't known about that. If he had, he would have chosen it and become like those commercial actors. He felt a bit regretful about it. Then Sika saw a cat and wondered if it was real since she had never seen a cat up close before. She wished it would come closer to them, but Shigure told her to go pet it. Sika hesitated at first, but then she remembered she could stand. This made Shigure think that in her previous life, she couldn't move. As she walked towards the cat, she stumbled and almost fell to the ground, but she didn't. Still, Shigure jumped to save her. She was surprised that he fell right in front of her and asked him what he was doing. He told her he was just doing some after-meal exercises. Sika then went closer to the cat, but Shigure headed to the bathroom and started crying a lot. He remembered Sika showing him her hands, and how if she could truly be beautiful, she would have touched her face, not just her hands. This meant she probably didn't have legs either, and there was no doubt she had some disability affecting her legs and preventing her from standing, and she was still just a teenager. But then he remembered he could help her, since he was the Great Lord. Then Sika came to him and knocked on the door, asking if his stomach was alright. She also asked if he needed any medicine. Shigure figured Sika was very innocent and would be an easy target for robbers. He finished up, washed his face, and then went out to her. Sika was really worried about him, but he thanked her for her concern. Then she told him everyone was waiting for them. But Shigure decided that now that he was a great lord, he'd make sure Sika became capable. Then they headed to their home. Seiji suggested they choose a class for themselves, and that points be distributed based on that class. This would help them in combat since their stats would be more flexible. Shigure thought it was a great idea. Seiji's goal was to become a hero. He asked Rizo to be a mage, and Shigure would be a heroic fighter. But Shigure didn't really like the idea of being heroic. However, Sika also wanted to be a hero. Shigure asked Sika if she wanted to be a heroic fighter, but she refused. Then they put on their new outfits. Shigure figured Seiji had spent a lot on these clothes, even though he was usually careful with money. But he did it because he was really invested in the whole thing. Then Sika came up to Shigure and told him she had become a mage. After Shigure told her she was awesome, she felt really happy. Then Seiji showed them the map and told them their destination was the city of Valyria, the biggest city in the area. Then he told them something before they set off. They were allowed to bring 3 snacks, but their total value couldn't be more than 3 rira. This made Sika sad. Seiji then asked them to meet tomorrow morning and told them they could go. Sika then went up to Rizo and asked her if she wanted to jump rope with her. Rizo was surprised, but Sika told her she could teach her since she had practiced a lot. When Rizo agreed, Sika asked her to go to the park. But Rizo asked Sika if she could jump rope in that outfit. Sika just went to change her clothes and took Rizo with her. Shigure was completely shocked. He remembered Sika and him buying that rope. Then Shigure and Sika went to a weapon shop. Sika pointed to a weapon she wanted, but Shigure thought it was for a heroic fighter and asked her, "Are you going to be one of those?" But she wasn't. Then she asked about another weapon, and Shigure thought it was a kung fu fighter's weapon. He asked her, "Are you going to be a kung fu fighter?" And he asked the seller, "Does she want nunchucks?" But Shigure told him to bring the item next to it. When he found out it was a jump rope, he was stunned. But the seller told her that a jump rope was the best and simplest weapon for kung fu fighters, and he could tell she was a beginner, right? They then left the shop, and Sika was super happy after buying the rope. After that, Shigure jumped rope in front of her, and Sika was impressed, even with Shigure's heavy weight. Then it was Sika's turn, and after she finished, she asked Shigure, "Did I do okay?" Shigure thought her progress was amazing, but Sika's expression changed a little, and Shigure asked her what was wrong. Sika said she wished she could teach Rizo how to jump rope. She felt like Rizo didn't want to be her friend because she wouldn't even tell her name to begin with, and Sika really wanted to talk to her a lot. Fast forward to the present. Sika was jumping rope, and Rizo was really impressed with Sika's skill. Shigure was watching them. Then Sika gave the rope to Rizo and asked her to try. Then Rizo jumped rope and was amazing, and Sika cheered her on. Sika then asked Rizo for her name, which made Rizo stop jumping. Sika was confused by this and asked if she was okay, but Rizo told her her foot just got tangled. That's all. But Shigure guessed she didn't want to talk about it. Sika then told Rizo that she had talked with Shigure and came up with a nickname. She thought of some nice, gentle-sounding words inspired by breeze in English and French. She asked for her opinion on the name Riz. This really surprised Rizo, and she asked if she could actually call her that name, but Rizo didn't answer her. She just kept jumping rope. Then she jumped really high. Shigure was shocked by her abilities and remembered her first fight, where she hadn't gotten any injuries at all. When Rizo landed, she got cheers from everyone. People came closer, and some asked her to do it again. This made Sika feel jealous, and she started crying. Everyone was surprised by Sika crying. Then Shigure showed up, which surprised everyone with his appearance. Some people thought Shigure was a monster, and that security should be called for him. But Rizo refused, saying he was a member of their team, and she told them she just wanted to make Sika happy. But Shigure thought she should have at least answered her, because it's tough for someone to be ignored. Rizo, however, got sad and left. Then they went home. Shigure asked Sika to loosen his cloak. She then picked up a piece of paper from the ground and told Shigure was a message from Rizo. Shigure asked her, "What does it say?" It said that Rizo apologized for what happened, thanked her for her kind heart, and asked them to be friends. Shigure thought this was good. Sika told Shigure she was going to look for Rizo and left. Then Shigure told Rizo that Sika had gone, which made Rizo show herself to him. She asked him if they could go into one of the rooms because she wanted to talk to him, but Shigure told her not to hold it against him afterward. Then they went into a room alone. Rizo apologized to Shigure, but Shigure told her to stand up and asked, "What are you apologizing for?" Rizo then revealed that his last name wasn't Sasaki, which surprised Shigure. She told him his real name and asked, "You're Mr. Y, who saved Seiji, right?" Shigeru asked Rizo how she got to know him. Rizo confessed to him that she was very observant and could read other people's windows, their names, traits, and special notes, which of course surprised Shiguro. He didn't want her to read his window. Then, Rizo asked Shiguro if he could guess the state of a body from the previous world. Turns out, Shiguro could do that to some extent. Rizo then admitted that she was the one who caused all this to happen to Sika, and she'd come here to atone for her sin. But Shiguro didn't really understand what Rizo meant, or what she had done to Sika. She went on to explain explained she'd been involved in a special program in the previous world and had met Sika there, wishing happiness for everyone, even Sika. But when the program went out of control, it caused an incident, and Rizo was really sad she couldn't stop it. Sika got hurt because of it. Rizo asked forgiveness again and again, and said the whole thing happened because of a simple misunderstanding and her own feelings, which she struggled to express. That's why in her notes, she wrote that she wants to understand others better. At this point, Shagaru figured out that Rizo can read other people's windows and asked her about the program she was part of. She told him it was an AI project. Shagaru suspected that Seiji was also involved, and Rizo confirmed that Seiji is her older brother. That surprised Shagaru too. He thought Seiji must know about Rizo's identity, but Rizo didn't think so, since she was totally different now and he hadn't noticed. Shagaru thought to himself that the same applied to him, feeling pretty down about it, and that looking incomplete, like missing 255, wasn't easy. Then Rizo said she'd heard about Mr. Y from Seiji, and was looking for him because he put smiles on other people's faces. She believed it was her fate to find him in this world, which made Shagaru suspicious of her story, but she assured him she wasn't lying. This was part of her atonement, in exchange for her unique note. She asked him to help guide Seiji and Sika, since he makes Sika smile and helps Seiji too, and she begged him to do this. Shagaru thought guiding was a bit much, but figured they both deserved a reward. He remembered Seiji crying when Kyusharu took advantage of him, and Sika when she gave him food. He realized that kind people always get taken advantage of by bad people, and his hair was falling out from the stress. In the end, he agreed to Rizo's request and said he didn't mind teaming up with her. Then Rizo made up her mind, brought out a knife, and cut her hair. Shagaru tried to stop her and asked why she was doing it. But for Rizo, this was her way of making a promise to herself, and she remembered Sika telling her that short hair suited her and wanted to get as close to Sika as possible. Shagaru told Rizo her resolve was admirable, but he didn't have any fancy contracts. Still, it was a deal between them, and they'd work to put smiles on Sika's face and everyone else's too. The next day, they packed up their things to leave. Sika was surprised by their transportation animal, since she'd never seen one like it before. Rizo came over and asked Sika if her new haircut suited her. Sika told her it was very pretty, that made Rizo cry. Shagaru thought to himself how happy he was that they'd become friends. Then Seiji told everyone to get moving and announced that their destination was Valyria Duchy. They headed into the forest, where they ran into a group of monsters. Sika showed her strength and managed to beat them, which made her happy. Then a flying monster attacked, but Seiji dealt with it. Another monster came at Sika from behind, but Rizo shot it with her arrows and finished it off right away, dropping down to join them. Shagaru thought that would do the trick. Sika told Shagaru that her skills had improved as a mage. Seiji noticed the sun was setting and suggested they camp there. They went to a big tree. Shagaru realized that if they took this route from Arya to Valyria, it would save them 2 full days, but it was really steep and there weren't any inns. Still, they were taking this path because Sika wanted to. Sika collected some branches and leaves to clean up and settle in for camping, feeling happy because it was her first time. Seiji suggested they divide up the tasks, and asked Sika whether she preferred to start the fire or catch fish. Sika chose to go fishing. Shagaru got a bit annoyed. It wasn't like this was summer camp or anything. Sika imagined herself as the great river mage, but Shagaru thought her cloak might scare the fish off. He tried to help her unzip her cloak for fishing gear. Shagaru and Sika headed to the river to fish, but neither of them caught anything, even though they could see the fish swimming around. Sika told Shagaru she didn't want to be a crybaby anymore, but she teared up a little while skipping rope. Shagaru asked Sika if this was a problem, but Sika didn't want to embarrass herself and wasn't even sure why she sometimes cried when she wasn't sad. Shagaru thought crying was fine. People don't just cry out of sadness, but because they're touched by things, and people gradually forget how to cry. He thought about his own past life and realized that when people forget how to cry, their power stops growing. He told Sika that if she didn't know why she was crying, she should ask herself what touched her heart. That made Sika cry again. Rizo came over and asked if they'd caught any fish, but Sika said they hadn't. Rizo thought it was just bad luck, but Shagaru suspected it was because he smelled bad. Rizo told them the fire was burning and she'd come to call them over. Sika insisted they should get fish for dinner, so Rizo thought for a bit, used her bow, and caught some fish, then handed them to Sika. Sika then went to give the fish to Seiji. Rizo noticed that Sika always smiled when she was with Shagaru, and realized what Seiji meant about him putting smiles on people's faces. Shagaru thought Rizo was exaggerating, but she didn't think so and felt things really did go smoothly when he was around. Then Shagaru saw some smoke up in the air and asked Rizo they should go back now. Rizo then asked Shagaru not to tell Sika or her older brother Seiji the truth about her, because if they found out, she thought the 4 of them might split up. She asked him to give her a little more time. Shagaru agreed. Back at camp, Seiji and Sika were making dinner. Shiguro asked if this was risotto, but Seiji said no, it was a kind of oatmeal made from barley. Sika said she had made it herself. Seiji said that warm food is what people crave while camping, and suggested they take the pot off the fire. Shiguro thought Seiji was a natural-born leader. Sika served food to Rizo and everyone started eating. Shiguro asked Seiji what the goal of their journey was, but Seiji didn't really get what he meant. Shiguro explained like defeating the demon lord in a game, or at least having some purpose for the trip, and wondered if that idea even existed in this world. Seiji wasn't sure if there were clear goals, but for now, their aim was to reach Valyria. He wanted to reach a civilized area to gather information and expand their options. Finding a real purpose could come after that. Shiguro was impressed by Seiji's way of thinking, just like a former boss. Suddenly, they all heard a noise from behind. A wounded girl appeared, and when she saw them, she collapsed and lost consciousness. In her dream, she saw herself being chased by 2 soldiers. After shaking them off, she opened her window and regretted writing such silly personal notes. She also remembered her previous life. Her boyfriend left her for a prettier girl, and she'd gotten bullied because her friends thought she wasn't attractive, which made her furious and vengeful. She woke up with Seiji beside her. He asked if she was okay. The girl then asked who Seiji was. Sika came in and told her she was glad she woke up. The girl tried to stand but was in pain, so Sika told her to rest since she was injured. Seiji said he'd stopped her bleeding and healed her with magic, though the girl still hurt. Sika cleaned the girl's face, who then thanked her. Sika asked her to say, "Thank you very much," but the girl didn't really care and just wanted to sit by the fire to warm up, so Seiji helped her over there, which made Sika sad that the girl didn't pay her any attention. Shiguro also saw that Sika was very overwhelmed, and he also thought she shouldn't try to win someone over at the first meeting. And Shiguro remembered when he met the girl and she lost consciousness, and Seiji asked Shiguro to give him water. Rizo brought the water and told Shiguro that she read this girl's note and that she wanted to kill every beautiful girl. Shiguro asked, "What does this mean?" But Rizo explained to him that this girl would undoubtedly target Sika. Then they returned to their lodgings, and Seiji asked the girl for her name. Then the girl told him her name was Arya. Then Seiji told her she should eat because she was sick. Arya agreed to the food. Then Sika offered her food, which annoyed Arya, but Sika told her she would hold the bowl for her so she could eat, and Sika asked her if she wanted her to blow on it to cool it down. But Arya felt anger whenever Sika spoke and tried to grab her weapon but couldn't find it where it usually was. Shiguro knew her weapon was with Rizo, but if she showed any sign of undesirable behavior, he would kick her out immediately. Then Seiji asked Arya about her injury. She told him that her group was attacked, and they got separated, and she fled to save her life. Seiji thought this was harsh, but Shiguro doubted the truth of what she said. Then Seiji told Arya they were on their way to Valyria, and that he would protect her until they arrived there so she would feel at ease. Arya asked Seiji if she could trust him, but Sika assured her she could trust him, and told her that Seiji had never let them down. Then Arya felt pain again. Seiji asked Sika not to surprise her, but Shiguro was watching from afar and thought that a spoon could also be a weapon, and he also should teach Sika what a safe distance was. Then Seiji asked Arya, "Are you still in pain?" But she was fine now but felt heat in the wound. Then Arya asked Sika to take her to a water source, but Seiji offered his help and for her to lean on him, but Arya told him she wanted a girl with her to bathe, which made Seiji feel embarrassed. Arya saw that he was acting innocently, but he felt aroused, but Seiji didn't mean it at all. Sika asked Seiji, "Are you feeling aroused?" which froze Seiji in his spot. Then Shiguro stepped forward. Arya thought he stepped forward for her, but Shiguro told her he didn't touch her. Then Sika asked Shiguro, "Are you feeling aroused too?" which froze Shiguro, just like Seiji, and she took them down in the blink of an eye. Then Rizo stepped forward and offered Arya to lean on her. She was showing a scary face, and Arya wondered, "Who are you?" Then Arya asked Sika to take her to the water source, and Sika agreed immediately and also gave her weapon to her so she wouldn't forget the monster countermeasures. And she supported her, but Shiguro was worried about Sika. However, Rizo went behind them to protect Sika, which made Shiguro feel a little relieved. Then Seiji asked Shiguro not to do that, knowing he was worried, but Shiguro told Seiji that Arya was dangerous. However, Seiji saw Arya as a mature woman and that he would get burned if he touched her recklessly, but that wasn't the case. But Shiguro objected to Sika handling this alone. However, Seiji wanted to trust Sika and asked him to eat when they returned. Then Seiji offered food to Shiguro and was surprised by Shiguro's trembling. But Shiguro used his power and made side jumps to be here and there, which distorted Shiguro's image in Seiji's eyes. But Shiguro told Seiji he was exhausted and put him to sleep, saying it should have been done from the start, and then he covered him. Then we moved to the river. Raya drank the water and felt refreshed from it. Then Raya told Sika that Seiji was really handsome and that she liked his handsomeness and his immaturity. But Sika thought Seiji was somewhat strict but considerate and a great person. Shiguro and Rizo were also all great, and Raya wished she could join them. Sika thought that was great and that she'd like to go on an adventure with her, but Raya got angry and told her that was impossible, and drew her sword because she wrote in her note that she hadn't forgiven beautiful girls and that she would kill them, which made Sika feel scared. Shiguro and Rizo were watching them, and Sika told Raya that she didn't think she was beautiful, but Raya thought Sika was beautiful. But once it's written in the notes, it can't be broken, and looking at beautiful girls fills her mind with impulses, and suddenly she finds herself committing something terrible. But Sika cried and asked Raya, "Why did you write notes like these?" Then Raya explained to her that one of the beautiful girls had trampled on what she held dearest, took her lover from her, and mocked her, so she poured out her hatred in her private note, and she told her that she was expelled from the country, and that's why she moved from one team to another and destroyed beautiful girls. But all of this will end today, and she will ask Seiji to take care of her, but she pleaded with Sika to die for her, which scared Sika, and Raya almost killed Sika, but Rizo intervened at the right time and knocked the arrow from Raya's hand using her bow. Then she threw several more arrows at her, and Raya almost went to pick up her weapon again, but Shiguro stopped her. But Raya got angry and scolded Shiguro to leave her alone, but Shiguro wouldn't bother her with trivial remarks and drew his weapon, which scared Raya. But something strange happened, and Sika turned into an angel.